Then met the other one.
Yeah,
Uh,
you always get mixed up with the other one.
okay.
Where are you, Heidi?
I'm in Italy.
Ah,
And you?
I'm in Spain.
Yeah, so nearby.
Oh, tomorrow there's an election, so we may not be in Spain
Oh,
on
yeah?
Friday. We might be in Catalonia on Friday.
Well, yeah,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
we'll
I
see.
didn't follow anymore, so it's now. Okay.
Yes, it's tomorrow.
Mhm. But you are not Spanish. I mean, Spanish
I'm
citizen.
not. No, Well, I was born in Scotland.
Mhm.
I I don't know what Scottish means really anymore, but it's not kilts and whiskey and bagpipes. But I've been in Spain 8 years now,
Mhm.
so but I'm leaving to go to England in January. So I'll be back amongst Celts and the Anglo-Saxons.
So they
Eight
might,
years is still, yeah. I'm away from Germany 33 years, so I don't know if I would still fit into that country.
hmm.
The Germans.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been gone for a little over 30 years. Well, 32 years from Denmark.
Oh,
That's actually very similar.
yeah, yeah. But you are Danish now,
I'm
are
from
you?
Denmark. Yeah, I grew up in Denmark. I'm Danish. Then I moved to the US, where
Oh,
I lived in California with my family for 18 years, and now we've been here for well, 12, 13, well, the rest of the years. Hello, Robert.
we are all expats.
Hello.
Yeah, expats.
Yes.
Ex-Pratt as well.
Expats, yeah. Hmm. Okay, so who else is coming? There's a lot of people on the list, but if they want to go to the future, they better show up for the takeoff. Otherwise, we might leave them behind. Nah, we wouldn't do that. They'll find their own way. Hmm.
Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Where are
Okay.
you?
Hello, Robert.
I'm in the current in Toronto.
Toronto.
Yes.
Now I see you in face. I normally see you only with your little picture.
Oh, where did you see that?
Oh, you were in our list, and you lately asked me that you didn't want to be invited anymore to
Oh,
our shows. So I never saw you. You know, I only saw this design, this drawing.
I forgot about that.
I'm the Wisdom Factory. You know, maybe.
Yes, I remember that. Although I do remember not. I don't know. Forgetting what exactly that is, or what I opted in for, or what I opted out for.
It's okay. It can be hard to keep track of all the
Oh
different
yeah.
things we do.
Oh yeah. But I'm glad to see you. You know, just see you in your face. So that's why.
Same.
Okay, well, looks like it's us four who are going to the future, so the rest of them can just catch up when they get there. So
Maybe they're already there.
maybe they're already there, so we're gonna go and catch up with them. Well, let's get ready then. So in order to get ready, I would like to ask you to just get really comfortable where you are in your chair and sit down and relax and breathe a little bit. Take a few deep breaths. Notice your body. Notice the blood in your vein and the chair under you. Notice the breaths that you're taking. And just relax for a moment. You're welcome to close your eyes if you want to, but you don't have to. And just relax. And now we are together going to go on a little journey, a journey to the future, to the year 2100. It's just 87 years into the future. And we're simply going to travel there by whichever mean we can, by imagining ourselves there. So just let us take a moment to travel the distance from here to the year 2100. And all you really need to have to do is to start imagining that you're there. And we'll just take a moment for everybody to arrive, and then we'll start looking around a little bit to see what we find. So let's just imagine that we actually can look from the year 2100 and see what is there. And you can take your time and gradually get a little sense of what it might be. Maybe you don't see it clearly, but you might get a sense of something. And we can use that to start piecing together what it might be, what is going to happen, how we got there, and how things work. In order to get some clues we can use from our earlier vantage point. So whenever you're ready, tell me some of what you might sense about this time, the year 2100.
I have two possible scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
The one is really beauty in nature and abundance. And the other is like, I don't know if you know Medici TV, where they have classical music.
Don't think so.
It's wonderful. They have, we saw La Bohème, the opera, embedded in the future. And that may be in 70, how many years? 83 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very frightening. So it was embedded in the space in where people can only breathe in their spacecraft or in their suits, you know, and it was about to end the oxygen. So both these things, I cannot decide which one. You know, this one is very intruding into my perception because it was really heavy. I mean, the music is old, but putting it in this new future, different future idea.
Okay. I'm trying to sense without having much of a sort of preconceived idea about what it might be, and I don't quite get anything clear yet. But I certainly sense that there are people there, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of activity. There are lots of things that move. Yeah.
Sorry, I sort of had a feeling of those two potential polars as well. But another thing my mind jumped to was when you said like time as a distance, and maybe that might be rethought of or redone through, where time is more of like a semantic thing, and that we might be playing in spaces such as these in a more kind of like seeing each other from semantic vantage points almost. And that might be sort of a lot of action going on with people too.
See, I get sort of also that, well, it's not so much one place. I mean, we might word it as we're going to the future, and then we see what is there. But that's sort of a very limited way of looking at it. I mean, lots of things are there, and it's not like just going 20 miles north and there's the city. So I get a sense of that it might mean that it's maybe even less one thing than it is now. Like there are lots of people doing lots of different things, and maybe having less of a requirement or less of an attempt of making it all one thing. I think a lot of what went wrong earlier in the 21st century and the 20th century sort of try to have one model for how society is, and what's one economic model of how it works, or a political model of this is how we run things. So I have a sense of maybe we've sort of found a way around that in the year 2100, where it's more lots of people are doing different things, and we don't have to force everybody to do the same thing. Things are sort of moving too fast or too fluid for that. So there's no reason to bother to try to agree on what's the political system. I mean, we could have different political systems or economic systems at the same time, and that could be okay. That's so more fluid, more like we do what it is we would like to do, and spend less time on trying to make the whole world agree on what we should do about one thing or the other.
My vision would be, or my wish more than a vision, that the people come to an understanding and to a sort of respect of each other and to a collaboration instead of fighting. Oh, Doc.
Hello. Sorry I'm late.
We're in the future, the year 2100, trying to sense what's going on.
But then I should have hair.
Well, if that's what you sense, you have it.
No, I'm just kidding.
The other thing that came to mind, even when you said sense making, that might be something that we're doing in multiple ways as well. Because I've heard the word sense making also referred to almost like new eyes, new creating new senses, and maybe in like from this multi perspective that you were saying earlier, that might fit in with what I had said about more like a semantic space where we need to sort of literally see maybe, I don't know, somebody else's social networks from their perspective or something like that.
So yeah, I mean, 2100, we're already way past, for many years, having mastered stuff like virtual augmented reality kind of thing. So essentially, we could totally be living in different realities, just technologically, without much difficulty. So there's sort of little need for sort of agreeing on what reality we all are in. I mean, we can choose different ones and group together based on which ones we like. And that should be way past that. That's just sort of an interesting novelty or a new feature on your phone. It has sort of become something that's part of life, that you can decorate the world around you with pretty much whatever you want. And I sense that as after some period of sort of confusion of what the hell is real, I think it might end up being a very freeing thing, that basically we can choose to group together whichever way we want and work on the things we want, because there's less limitation in space. A lot of it is virtual. So like a meeting like this could be totally wherever we wanted to meet, and not just as a cool, interesting picture, but something that actually feels pretty much like we can live there. And I sense that might at that point actually have changed it in a where it has become a positive thing, that where we have overcome that need for all sort of fighting about limited resources or exploiting them and so forth. So at least it sort of matches what I sense with this sort of it not being one thing, but being many things that move at the same time. Hi, Cheryl. We're in the future, the year 2100, trying to sense what's happening there.
2100. Got it.
Yep. There was a nice round number.
I like it. I have to plug you in. I thought I'd listen a little while I do that.
I actually am not so sure that we have to wait that long. My partner and I have been sort of drilling down on this idea of what we affectionately refer to as the collective metacognition machine works, which is the platform everybody has decried its lack of existence of, but which I think we all wish we had. And the difference, at least the difference that we've experienced around this idea is that if you put on a human being-centered experiential lens and then turn attention to what's the technology that would serve me through that lens, and it completely changes the whole orientation toward the design and build. It takes, it eliminates the scarcity of having to shoehorn into the technology frame and orientation, which is humans working for the machines rather than the machines working for humans. And it surfaces a whole bunch of things. What you just described, for example, is not that hard. Like, technologically, we have the wherewithal and ability to do that today. And it's just about asking the question, like saying to somebody, what do you prefer? What do you like? And integrating and incorporating that into their experience when they work and play and get together with others. And I think that engineering out all the barriers to entry and reprioritizing what the technology is prioritizing and doing, instead of it being in service to data, which in our universe is just a byproduct of human generativity, it really is possible to sort of rejig everything. On one hand, it's a trim tab to traditional software design and build, and on the other hand, it's just a completely different sea change of an approach to how you look at what you're trying to deliver to a user. You know, it's a whole new Uber sort of steroid vision of user interface. It's user experience on rocket fuel. But I don't think we necessarily wait until 2100 to experience that.
So you were talking about from a society point of view, right, Doug? And what is C?
Well, from a technology standpoint, in terms of it serving us instead of the other way around.
What is sea change?
It's an expression, that it's a completely different view of the world. That's really like what? I'm sorry.
Like game B.
That the reference I'm not familiar with, but
I'll give you some links afterwards. But
okay.
it is game B what you're talking about. Yeah.
I love what you said, Doug. A lot.
I somehow see that there'll be more diversity of species, and I mean human species as well, and that I think telepathy, and I mean the emotional, but also the mental telepathy will be normal or potentially normal, and that people will find each other very quickly and adapt and move fluidly, and that there'll be those who balance structure and emergence in different ratios to be able to create differently. And that the sense of the human body and membranes and cells, the human species as a being itself, made of these carbon and hydrogen, that the element constituents might change and the atmospheric conditions might change, so that we are able to work differently with the different elements within us. And that some will master heart technology, that the heart, that what's happening here will change. And who I have the sense that genital organs will change, that somehow there'll be different beings and species, and yeah, all of that, and then that creation can actually come through the word. You can give birth through sound. So those are a few things.
I like what you said, Graham. I wish that could be a whole conversation. I might be a little early in the conversation, but this is reminding me both what Doug said and Graham said about our species changing and choosing. And I've always had this concept, and I've shared it with a few people, and nobody seems to really understand what it is. So I think I might be nuts. But but one person said something that made sense. But I imagined that if all of humanity has such a difference in their, let's say, we'll call it level of higher consciousness, just because that explains what I mean. You know what I mean? Really quickly, you know what I'm talking about? So if some of the species has a very high consciousness and some of the species is like barely a beast, and then we have that whole continuum in between, and everyone is distributed on that continuum, that if the higher consciousness people don't bring everyone along, then we would have what Graham said, almost two species. And that, in my opinion, the barbarians could have an easy advantage because they don't care to think about the consequences as much as the person who pauses to think, or say the group or now become species, who always pause to consider the consequences before acting in that moment, could lose. I mean, if it really became species almost, we'll say almost a cultural kind of thing too, because naturally this is going to be a cultural thing. I mean, I'm not thinking this is going to happen, but I worry about it. I worry that if the higher consciousness people don't stay in biology and stay aware, that if they did lose or get really set back, it sets all of humanity back to that level. And then we have to start up again. So it's wise to go slower almost, so that everyone stays together, so that we don't end up to be two species, because in that game, I think that the bad ones, the barbarians, the animal people could have an advantage over those who pause. And that doesn't suit the whole species as a whole. And then Max Marmer told me when I told him this, he was the only person that kind of understood, but he corrected me. He said that it's not really like an hourglass, you know, where we could split in the middle of the hourglass and become two species. He said it's more like a jar, like most people are distributed in the middle. So we couldn't split. Does that make any sense to anybody? I have no conclusion.
It does make some sense. I mean, I have issues with it too, though. Like, I mean, there's the question of whether we all together somehow need to succeed in doing something, or if we split off into, well, not necessarily two, but like lots and lots of different branches. And currently we're in sort of a global world where we're sort of stuck together. So it's a problem with the people who really have a different consciousness, and we sort of
globally.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking one possibility that I see is that we sort of get over that instead of necessarily fixing that problem, that we all kind of stick together and go at the same speed, we somehow develop a system which includes technology and a social system and an economy where we all can, to some extent, go our own ways or get together with the people who have a similar view on things and follow our truth and do our thing without having to fight it out with the people who see it differently. And currently we do some of that, but in another way it's not possible. There's kind of one global economy and one global political system in a certain way of looking at it. And that doesn't work. That's part of what makes the world fall apart. So I am hoping that we find a way, a technology, a way of thinking about it, a way of going about it that gets over that, where that doesn't become the stumbling block. I would like for all of humanity to work and to succeed, but I think it's maybe a very risky gamble to bet on that has to happen. There might still be groups of people who really are going to stay at we could say it's a lower level or a more violent way of doing things. I would like to organize society so that they don't cause so much trouble, that it's not that there keeps being a risk that they end up in charge and screw everything up. I'd like a society where they end up in their little sort of department doing their thing, and that doesn't bother anybody else. So sort of an open space thing for the world, that if you want to go and be a tyrant, you can go with the other tyrants over there and tyrant each other, and that's fine. It doesn't bother anybody else. So I can see technologies that sort of go in that direction, like the virtual reality kind of thing, that people get more of a choice of what kind of world you want to live in. And with AI and other technologies, it might become possible to manage a very, very diverse system where we don't have to do the same thing. So I'm kind of seeing that we split off into many branches, and that's okay. That is not a problem, and that creates a certain harmony, because most people can be free to do what they want to do and still sort of feel supported in life from doing that. And there are lots of things to figure out and how to do that. But I also agree with Doug that it doesn't have to take 87 years. It's more of a matter of thinking a little bit differently, and a few key technologies and just another way of going about it, which is already what we are doing here in a certain extent. We're not trying to make a master plan for humanity. We're just sort of hanging out here doing our thing in our little bubble of reality.
I want to say that I'm very uncomfortable with this conversation, because a very important thing is sort of left out: the interior development. You are talking about all these technologies, everything. What we need is an ethic. We need to have back ethical guidelines for all of us, because otherwise we just kill us when we go ahead with having technology, advanced possibilities without having an interiority. And for me, it takes quite a bit of time because it is based in biology, and biology is very, very, very slow in changing. So until we really find an understanding between each other. And by the way, we will always have lower level of developments because new children, as long as they are born, they begin at level 0 and they come on. So there will always be the egocentric outburst of things. And so until we come to higher consciousness and stuff like this. But I'm very much irritated by the discussions of higher consciousness, and we are so good and we can live alone and the others go over there. We can't, because it's enough that one group is triggering the bomb and we are gone. Mm-hmm. So I think we should go a little bit more into reality here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just going to say something, kind of like what that feeling was, Adelaide, what you just said about the bomb and everything, because I think the perfect real life example is, and I don't mean higher consciousness like we're better than anybody. I just mean you can see that some humans get it more than others in that way, and some are more barbarians. But like, if North Korea nuked the United States, if they suddenly felt afraid enough that they were going to die and he was going to take somebody with him, it could very well be the United States, and he could very well pretty much turn us into a refugee nation by nuclear bombs in multiple coasts. That would be very bad. And it would hurt the whole world and the whole economy, and it really could set the whole world back. And I think that taking care to bring everybody, just to have that consciousness of, we aren't going to go off by ourselves. Although, you know what, Fleming, I agree 100% with what you say. Socially, we have our niches and our joys, and that's how we bring about the beauty and the art that's going to come forth. But we need to pay attention to all those other things too, because I'm scared.
I think it can very well happen at the same time. I actually agree that the sense of ethic is extremely important in this, but I'm not counting on betting that everybody, 8 million people in the world, will have an innate sense of ethics that will bring us forward. No matter how good and balanced all of us is, there will always be one guy who will want to push the button just to see what happens. So I'm in part hoping both for that more people can develop and live by a sense of inner ethics. Like right now we live in a world where it doesn't make all that much difference. Like the system sort of is geared towards you do sort of what you can get away with. That's sort of the economy, and that's not what we would probably like it to be, but your own sense of ethics isn't really all that important in it. I'd like it to be, and that's part of what I see as my vision of it, that you can more follow your thing, which doesn't mean get away with whatever you can get away with, which more means what really fires you up, what's right for you, that it becomes meaningful to have a sense of ethics of what's right to do, and that you actually have a right to go and live your way. It's difficult to do that at this point. I mean, you run into all sorts of norms and laws and so forth. So I think it's very important. At the same time, I'm hoping for something beyond that. All of us have to fix the problem for everybody. Like the problem right now is, yes, terrorists can go and just blow up all sorts of stuff just because they feel like it. And our society overall globally is structured to be very vulnerable to that. And I can imagine that changing. I can't totally imagine exactly how, but I can imagine by it being more decentralized, rather than everything sort of having a lot of vulnerable central points that somebody just needs to blow up Washington, D.C., and then it's a big mess, or maybe that would help. I don't know. But it's there are lots of key points that could be attacked very easily, and people can just sort of walk around with a suitcase nuke and blow up something that would be very inconvenient. So our structure is organized to almost demand that everybody in the world suddenly needs to become sane and not blow anything up. But I'm just not betting on that that's likely to happen. I'd like lots of internal development, and I think it's a key part of it, but I think there will always be a small percentage of people who will blow things up, and we need to organize ourselves so that they do as little damage as possible. And that's a tricky problem to solve, but I think we need to solve it differently than what we're doing today, which is sort of trying to find one global solution to it, the war on terrorism, which is not really going anywhere. So I think it's all of the above, and I don't know how exactly it will be integrated.
Well, maybe like you said, Fleming, everyone does their own thing, and then that becomes your expertise and your passion, and then you're solving those problems there. And then we're all just somehow coming together when the circles get closer and closer, bigger and bigger.
I've personally changed my mind a little bit about it recently to actually think that it needs to happen closer to home, to ourselves, that it's important what we individually and in small groups are doing. And that all this, I mean, the news is full of what should we do, or how can we all solve this problem? I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I think what's going to go somewhere is groups like us who try to get clear on what we do, what is our ethics, what is our intentions, and finding a way of doing it. And I wouldn't say ignore the situation in the world, but sort of go about our business without being affected by all the bad news of what things we can't solve.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm late to the call. I really love this discussion. This is my favorite topic, future, what's going to be happening. I think one critical aspect, really critical in a movement forward, both for me personally and for the people around me, you each on the call, is to try to be very aware and conscious of moving out of a dualistic or a linear mode of thinking. Because when I think about the future, and I was, when I first got on the call, I kept hearing about humanity, and I was thinking, oh, wow, humanity, that's humans. The truth is, we are all interrelated as carbon elements on the face of the planet. And in terms of how we morph, transform, the cycles of our lives, this arising and falling, this birth and death process, we share with everything that comes into being. And to me, this awareness of being part of this elemental fabric of nature, there's an inextricable awareness, some kind of unconscious nonverbal communication that takes place, that I feel that's shared, not just with humanity, not just that we need to have a consciousness. I feel that we need to really tap into the capital consciousness, which is a collective awareness of all beings, element, inanimate and animate, that support the unfolding of the future. And what I'd like to say about, this idea that it's all or nothing, that mentality is very, I'm putting this in quotes, I feel like Nixon, an immature thinking. It's a childlike thinking in terms of how we expect and hope and want everything to be just like us. Diversity has been the way that life has survived, and it seems like every day, there's new things that we're discovering about the ancient world that still exists. Things that we thought millions of years ago were dead, that we're finding are surviving in the deepest parts of the earth. And if we take a look at how nature herself allows for all of this chaotic expression, as a strange attractor in the chaos theory, if I have the ethic, my personal awareness of my responsibility, the clarity in which I move through my life, everything around me begins to galvanize to bring forward the future that I can envision. And in the model of transformation, as an imaginal cell that actually groups to an imaginal disk, as we replicate ourselves just over and over again, we begin to create something that we can't even begin to imagine. And it's in that place that I hold the hope. It's in that place that the suffering that I see, I recognize as a catalyst for change that's cracking open many systems, not just the political, economic models of a global world, but the internal landscape, my psychological landscape, the notion that perhaps even I can be escaping into an entirely different dimension that has the same kind of reality but with different rules. So I'm hoping that what will happen is that in this place of our future together, that we recognize that just like single-celled animals, bacteria and viruses who don't even have a heart, that there is a way that existence happens. There's something that drives survivability. There's something that drives knowing the single purpose that I have. A virus, its single purpose is to live. It changes everything that it touches, for good or ill. And so for me, the most vital thing in the future is to throw out my vision with all the things that I'm aware of and bring myself to the best place. And that what I'm emitting is this grounded sense of love. Not knowing what that future is going to look like, but a place that I know that I'm bringing myself and everyone around me more deeper, more connected, more aware, with greater creativity and possibility, because we love. I know. I'm a little Pollyanna-ish when it comes to the future, but it's the only way that I feel that as individuals and as groups, we can navigate the landmines that keep us stuck in this fear mentality that keeps us going into the all or nothing, grasping at things that we know must and will change. So there you have it. Sorry I missed the beginning.
I love what you said.
But I've missed you. I've missed you. I've missed you all.
Missed you too, Tisha.
I love that. That was really great.
Yeah, I'm 100% where you are, and I really have sort of this very mechanical, pedestrian, rubber meets the road kind of orientation around it. If you know, human generativity maps to what we put our time and attention into. And the first thing we have to do is think it. Second thing is to publish it, put it out there, share it. And the third is to do the actions individually and collectively to make it so. And the root growth medium for the initial thought that starts that whole generative process is only one of two places. It's either love or fear. And if it's fear, it generally produces really bad stuff. And if it's love, it generally produces good stuff. And in that simple a frame, I really think we're in the imaginal cell reality right now. That's exactly what we're seeing all around us. There's a battle, grassroots, bottom up, of people awakening and emerging, and the old systems, the organs of the caterpillar, are holding firm, and we're fighting the immune system of the caterpillar, and we're gonna win because there are just a lot more of us. And it doesn't have to be concerted. It doesn't have to be holistic and a global thing. It's each individual has an intrinsic and innate unlimited power to generate and create the new. And enough of us envisioning and sharing and comparing notes and connecting on a field level, you know, all of those things, whether explicitly aggregated or organized or frameworked, which is all that industrial imprinting crap we have to unlearn, all of those energies and investments of time and attention are going to aggregate to change. And I think, you know, we're seeing all the systems fall apart and break down. Governments, banking, finance, economics, all of that, all of the industrial stuff is failing. Actually, a lot of it's already failed and it's barely keeping itself, you know, standing up. So much is illusory right now in the world. I come at it from, you know, me, myself, and I as an individual contributor to a collective whole. What can I do? And how do I maximize my contribution? And so I'm looking at it on a really sort of grassroots elemental level. I put huge faith in human beings, especially if they're given the means to contribute. And so if we can figure out how to enable everybody to play, to participate, without requiring literacy, technology, education, sophistication, mindfulness training, or any of the bells and whistles and hoops of, you know, what represents a fairly small elite. If we can figure out how to enable everybody to have a voice, and figure out how to empower them and enfranchise them, to recognize and own their ability to play, to contribute, to create, wherever they are within the context of whatever community they're in, whatever culture they're in, whatever belief system they're in, that's sort of like step in the right direction. And so a big part of that is just, you know, focusing on relieving fear. Right? It's like really basic stuff, but you know, I sort of consistently share the videos of, you know, the guy who had a, you know, tech job and quit and started feeding and bathing and caring for the untouchables as a Brahmin, and the power of his, you know, sort of his service and giving. And I think that's like, it doesn't take much of that kind of change on a grassroots level to start to shift the world in the right direction. And
well, I would just like to say the world is going in the right direction for itself. So what I think is, you know, what's important to remember is we can't take ourselves out of the equation. We're co-creating. That's the main thing. Everything is co-creating in this instant. And if I think that I am pushing and pulling in one direction or another, it means that I am not creating the mutual respect and trust that all of those things that you said, regardless of having to do this teaching or having the privileges of the Western world, but the basic elements of nature, you know, are needing to hand across, share resources. These are things that happen in the forest. This is not an intellectual construct. It's not an economy that has to be constructed. We just need to be willing to participate. We need to get off our high egos about our self-righteousness, about trying to figure it out, and really be present with what is. And it's not easy. And I'm not trying to, while I say it with a smile and as a Pollyanna, that I see this wonderful future, I have to tell you, I don't know how to actually forgive. I hold on to my resentments that keep me in this poisonous place of aggravation and anger. So I'm somebody who's really, for many years, attempted to stay calm and peaceful and eliminate fear. But if all of my efforts, I've recognized it's not just me that's having this issue. This is a cultural nuance, the deconstruction of family systems, the veil that has gone over our accountability and our responsibility to one another as beings of trust and learning. And that we make a mistake, we don't throw people away. We need to put them where they can do the best good, and I can do the best good, and then maybe in the future we come back together. But we're on the same planet. We're speeding around the universe on this big blue ball, and we do need each other. So these internal systems of how do I actually forgive? Really let go. So I'm not harboring anger and resentment, so that my fear doesn't constantly be triggered, that I'm not being taken off course. Because these days, when I think about the future, I am completely blank. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I know some things I want it to look like, but I take full responsibility for my projection. And I'm not putting that on anyone else. I refuse to, because I refuse to take anybody else's projection. What I will do is receive the gifts that are here for me. I will show up to provide the gifts that I came here to give as this soul being who is embodied. And I think it's vitally important that we cannot extricate any single ounce of what it means to be human. Our emotions, our vulnerability, our sense of shame at not knowing the reality that we do need each other. The fact that the world is unlimited. The universe is unlimited. And it pails me to think how much is possible if I choose to take that responsibility. Me, my little ego, Letitia, if I choose to take a stand for who I came to be in this world. Because it means standing in the face of what I consider in this bucket of patriarchy, everything that wants to oppress, keep it down, keep me down, keep the future down. So while we're kind of moving forward, I don't want to just do it in our heads. I don't want to just do it in our vision. I want to feel really grounded, walking with my feet on the ground. I'm not fond of pain and suffering. In fact, I normally will turn my head because it's so excruciatingly painful. I have the privilege to turn my head. I have to recognize and own that privilege. And any time that I can stay there and melt away any fear that I have, to look at that tragedy in its face for what it is, I know in that moment I can help change that in the future. But until I can face that, the biggest, most horrific truth, I can't help change the future.
Thank you, Leticia.
We have too much to say in 5 minutes.
I would like to say, in the spirit of the season in the Northern Hemisphere, as we go way into the dark, that in my traditions, in my communities, we celebrate this renewal of our spirit child, this spark of awareness, that in this time when we're heading into another 6 weeks of really freaking cold weather in some places, that we know that even though I'm by myself in the dark, that you're out there with your lights, that you're out there dreaming the future, that you're out there doing the work that needs to be done. And with the grace and the hope, and in my imagination, I know the world is getting better, even though the press doesn't want me to think that it is.
Thank you, Letitia. And we're getting close to the top of the hour, so any which way that you would like to conclude or summarize or give feedback on how our trip to the future has worked, feel free to do so.
The other ones that were my favorite ones, this one's now my favorite one.
We got protocol. I think we started off this call eyes shut, seeing what we saw and felt, and then trying to go back to what happened, and then we end up back here projecting. And it's really hard to do. It's really hard to, well, I find it hard to, a bit like Letitia's saying, see what's happening tomorrow afternoon. Never mind there, but there's a sense of a mixture of hope and tempered with doubt and realities and different ways of thinking. And I found myself drawing some sort of little guy. I don't know what that, sort of a hybrid of a sort of machine, human, animal type. Maybe it's all like this, I don't know. So I've not been in one of these calls for a year now, and I feel it's nice to do this again. I've forgotten what it's like to do that and see all these people from all over the world. So yeah, thanks Fleming, thank you everybody, and merry stuff. That's me. And I hope the future is a lot of fun. I like a lot of fun rather than the heavy, it's, yeah.
And I thought we were going to probably sense more, but I guess we sort of went back here and looked at how we looked at the future, which is fine, because frankly, I didn't see a whole lot myself. I mean, the future is a little bit mysterious, and 87 years, I have no clue. So it does make sense that we come back and
That's
look
because
at.
you went 87 years, not 83. You keep going 87. That's
Oh, damn! I screwed it up.
That's why.
That's it. We went to the wrong year. Damn. We should have used your time machine, Graham. Damn. Okay. Well, it was close enough.
I thought you said 2020.
2020. That's in 3 years.
Right.
Well. It could happen. It's not really a matter of time.
I think this is an example of this multi-dimensional reality where we're all in different time spaces and yet we're still together. I love that.
I want to thank Letitia because I was very uncomfortable at the beginning, and you have said it right for me. You have expressed everything in such a wonderful way that I could never do it. So thank you.
I'll say one more thing. Each person that spoke, I really identified exactly with what you said. And I feel like all those things are simultaneously, we're all simultaneously living all those aspects or points of view, because it's not really simple. It is complex like that.
I see when I take a sip of my drink that Yoda's in the frame, and I do use the Force a lot. So, be good in the Force, everyone. May the Force be strong in you.
I use a protein shake.
Wonderful. Well, unless there are any other concluding remarks, I'd like to thank you all for going with the rest of us to the future, whatever exactly it was, or where it was, or where it wasn't. We had a trip and we experienced something, and we got maybe a little bit wiser, I hope, and hopefully we're a little more suited to move forward. So thank you.
Thanks for creating the opportunity in the channel.
My pleasure, as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and see you next time. I don't know what will happen next time. The what?
Happy holidays.
Oh, well, happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays, everyone.
I say Merry Christmas, because we are founded on Christianity, at least we are in the Western world.
Merry Christmas is good too, yeah.
Okay.
So,
stay warm.
Okay, yeah, you too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.